Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kari, and today we're going to do a good old-fashioned book haul. Because I was looking at my books and I realized that I haven't done a book haul since March 2023. So I have a shit ton of books to share with you that I've bought over the past year. I have over 100 of them. I think 107 if I've counted correctly. But you know, letters are more my thing, not numbers, so who knows if that's accurate. But definitely over 100. So we have a lot of books to get through. I'm going to try to be brief on each of them. I just want to share with you what's been coming into my library over the past year. Obviously, a lot of these I've already read, so if I have read them, I'll indicate that to you if I liked it, if I didn't like it, whatever. But I am going to kind of keep things moving because if I dedicate a bunch of time to every single book, we'll be here all day. I am going to divide the books into different categories so you can kind of scroll around to where you want to see. Like I have a thriller and horror pile, I have a literary fiction pile, I have a nonfiction pile, a manga pile, and a special like collector's book section. So do with that information as you will. I guess let's start with the special edition books because pretty... You know, I'm a sucker for beautiful books. Obviously, you can see behind me, like I collect the cloth-bound classic edition books and all different kinds of special edition books. I just love special edition books to make my library even more beautiful. So let's start with those. So first I have these really heavy books. They're really heavy. All right, maybe this is better. Okay. A little bit more manageable. So yeah, these are the Harper Muse Classics Jane Austen collection. They're basically the same thing as the Thomas Nelson season editions. If you remember those, I have those as well. I really like them because they have the die cut covers. They're really, really beautiful. I have some shorts on my channel if you're interested in seeing these books at a closer glance, but they're really, really beautiful. Like I said, they have the die cut covers and they also have these sprayed edges of different tones of blue. They're just really, really beautiful. They're really heavy, as you can tell. They're just really good quality books and they're great collectors if you're a Jane Austen fan, so I would definitely recommend these. And then last year I only got 2 cloth bounds. Obviously I already have a pretty big collection, so I'm just choosing the new ones that come out that I want to get. The first one being Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov. This is all my 24 books I want to read in 2024. I'm not going to read from this edition. I don't read from my cloth bound classics. Hot take, I know, they're just to look at. Don't sue me, okay? But I definitely had to have a copy of this. Then I also got the mini cloth bound classic of Rilke's Letters to a Young Poet, which I've never read before. This would be something easy to knock out really quickly. I've heard nothing but good things about this book, so I'm definitely going to get to this sometime soon. Next is just a personal collection thing. Like they're not like the cloth bounds where lots of people collect them, but this is just a personal thing because I absolutely love Donna Tartt. I got first editions of all 3 of her books, The Secret History, The Little Friends, and The Goldfinch. So this is just a personal thing because I love Donna Tartt so much. I wanted to get some first editions of all of her books. And then I also got 2 anniversary edition of Donna Tartt books. Obviously, The Secret History, this was the 30th anniversary edition, and then The Goldfinch, this was a 10-year anniversary edition, and this one's actually signed by Donna Tartt, so I'm really happy about that, to have a signed Donna Tartt book. And if you're interested in hearing more about The Goldfinch, I'm not sure when my review of The Goldfinch is going up compared to this video, if it's already up or if it's coming after, but either way, be looking out for a review of The Goldfinch. Spoiler alert, I fucking loved this book, so be looking out for that. And then to round off the Donna Tartt collection pieces that I added the past year was this Penguin Books edition of The Secret History. I don't know what these editions are called with this like classic penguin cover on it, but it's The Secret History. So I had to have a copy of this for my Donna Tartt shrine. Then I have 2 copies of this Harper Muse painted edition books. So Harper, again, that's the same company that published those Jane Austen books that I was just talking about. So I got Jane Eyre, and the cover of this is just absolutely beautiful. So obviously, you know, it says that they're painted editions, and they look like they're painted. They're even 3D, like there's a relief to them, and they have gilded edges as well. So yeah, I have Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte and Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I've actually never read Frankenstein, but this cover is incredible. I had to have this even though I've never read it before, whereas I've read Jane Eyre and that's one of my favorite books, one of my favorite classics of all time. But this lightning is stunning on this book, and it's like lifted because of the paint. I had to have it. It's so beautiful. Would definitely recommend these books. They're just really beautiful, especially like for a gift. Would recommend. Oh yeah, as I'm putting these books back, you may have noticed that I have even another first edition of Secret History up here when I was talking about it, that there was even another one. Yes, I got 2 of them. Leave me alone, okay? All right, I think that's all the special collector's editions that I have. Let's move on to literary fiction. I guess we'll start with these in particular. These are a stack of books that I bought for the International Booker of 2023. Some of these were just longlisted and some of them even went on to be shortlisted. First, we have Standing Heavy by Gauze. I read this, I loved it. If you have lived any amount of time in France as a foreigner, as an immigrant, this is really interesting depiction of a particular immigrant experience. Would definitely recommend. A lot of people didn't like it as much as I did, but I loved it. Next, we have Boulder. I read read this one as well. I loved it. It's a really interesting examination of a woman who isn't sure if she wants to become a mother or not, which was a big theme for the International Booker last year, and I ate it up. Then we have Whale by Chiang Myung Kwan. I started reading this one, but then I wasn't able to finish it by the time the award was announced. And then I never went back and finished it, but I do want to go back and finish it. I was really enjoying what I had read already. It's really like a magical realism story, and it was great so far. Then we have Is Mother Dead by Vigdis Hjorth. This is another story that deals with motherhood, but this time the daughter is like in a really, I don't know, like toxic relationship with her mom. Like it's a really bad dynamic between the mom and daughter, and I really enjoyed this one. Then we have Stillborn by Guadalupe Nattel. This is about two friends who make a pact in college that neither one of them are going to have babies, but then they grow up and one of the friends gets married and decides, you know what, actually I do think I want to have a child, and how the other friend kind of feels let down that this friend went back on her promise. I loved this book. It should have won the International Booker last year. Then finally we have The Birthday Party by Laurent Mauvignier. I did read this one. It's a very literary thriller, and because I do read like regular thrillers, it did seem a little bit too slow for me, but if you're into slower thrillers or want to try slower thrillers, I would recommend it because it's pretty good and it does keep the suspense going, so would recommend. Then I have a bunch of books that I bought for the Women's Prize last year in 2023. Then we have The Infamous Pod by Sheena Patel. This follows a dolphin, a spinner dolphin, and you see kind of the dynamic like dog eat dog world, the fish eat fish world under the sea. I think I liked it more than a lot of people did, but I didn't love it. It was like a 3-star, I think. It was okay, but this cover, amazing. Then Fire Rush by Jacqueline Crooks. This was another one that I did not enjoy. Through reading the shortlist for the Women's Prize last year, I learned that I am not a historical fiction girly, and the whole shortlist was basically historical fiction last year. So, I mean, this fit into that. This is musical historical fiction. Wasn't for me, didn't like it. Same thing, Black Butterflies. This was probably the best out of the ones that I didn't like. I still didn't love it, but it was the best out of the ones I didn't like. Again, historical fiction. And then Trespasses, which was also shortlisted. Didn't enjoy this, but there you have it. I've blabbed on enough about the Women's Prize for Fiction shortlist from last year. And then Demon Copperhead. I also have this other cover of Demon Copperhead, but I actually, whoa. This book went flying. I actually already hauled this edition of Demon Copperhead last year, but I did end up getting this Barnes & Noble exclusive edition from a friend in the US that they came to visit, and they brought me this edition because it's fucking beautiful. It's stunning. I love the rainbow element of it. So just a beautiful second edition of Demon Copperhead, a book I have still not finished, by the way. It's horrible. I was loving it. I need to go back to it. Okay, then speaking of Demon Copperhead, which also won the Pulitzer, the other book that won the Pulitzer last year was Trust by Hernan Diaz, so I picked this one up as well. I have not read this yet, and I don't really remember too much about what it's about. I think it's set during the financial crash. I don't remember, but it piqued my interest enough to buy a copy of it. Okay, next we'll just move into general literary fiction that I didn't buy them for a particular reason, just that I was interested in them. So first we have Soldier Sailor by Claire Kilroy. A lot of people are talking about that maybe this is going to be longlisted for the Women's Prize this year. That would be cool because I'm already interested in this. I don't remember the details about what this is about, but I know it deals with the theme of motherhood, and as you can already see, that's a topic that interests me, about women deciding if they want to be mothers or not. So I'm really looking forward to reading this, and I hope it gets longlisted this year for the Women's Prize because that would give me the push to read it sooner maybe than I would. Then if you're a subscriber of the channel, maybe you already saw that last year I read Rouge by Mona Awad because Bunny is one of my favorite books of all time. I love that book. And actually, so I was sent an early copy of it, an advanced reader copy of it. So this is my ARC that I'm going to keep forever because it's the very first ARC I ever received. So it means so much to me, especially because it's Mona Awad and my first ARC. Like, Mona Awad's one of my favorite authors of all time. So it meant so much to me that I received this ARC. It's just special to me to have this ARC. And then I also did get I paid for a finished copy, and it's signed by Mona Awad. You know, I had to have the signed finished edition as well because of how much I love Mona Awad. So 2 copies of Rouge. Then I have The Disenchantment by Celia Bell. I was just saying how much I don't like historical fiction, but this is actually historical fiction that I am interested in, and I think I am going to click with because it's historical fiction based on the court of Louis XIV at Versailles in France. And if you don't know, I'm obsessed with the history of Versailles. I live in Paris, if you don't know, and I go to Versailles all the time. I have a little pass to skip the line to go into the chateau, into the gardens whenever I want, and I'm just obsessed with the history of Versailles. So I think I'm going to love this one. Also, it's queer, which is really, really cool to focus on a queer story at the court of Versailles. I just think that this is going to be really good. Next, we have Waiting for Ted by Mireke Big. I'm not sure how to pronounce their first name. I don't remember too much what this is about. I listened to the Books Unbound podcast, and Ariel Bissett said that she had gotten this and she explained it and she sold me on it. I really wanted to try it, but if I remember correctly, it's kind of an absurdist thing that this woman is waiting for her husband to come home, like it's set in the 50s or something. This woman is waiting for her husband to come home, but then she starts to wonder, is he gonna come home? But there's some kind of absurd element to it, and I thought it sounded pretty good. Next, we have How to Love Your Daughter by Hila Bloom. This is in translation, and I'm trying to read more books in translation. And I know that this obviously deals with mother-daughter dynamics, and that's something that interests me to read about. So I think that this is something I'm really going to enjoy. Then we have The Guest by Emma Cline. I've actually never read an Emma Cline before. I never read The Girls by Emma Cline, but I know a lot of people love that book. And recently I've been hearing more and more people talking about this book, that it came out last year, and more people are reading about it, talking about it. And apparently it's pretty good. It's just about a young woman who gets into a relationship with an older man, and the way that this older man treats her, I think, is what it's about. So that's a topic that I'm interested in reading about. So interested to read this. Then again, if you watch my worst books that I read in 2023 video, this book is no stranger. It's The Happy Couple by Nisha Dolan. As I said in that video, I'm really upset that I did not like this book. Basically, it follows a couple who is about to get married, but the more you learn about them, the more you realize that they should absolutely not be getting married. And so it follows their story about, are they going to end up getting married or not? And as I said in that video, I did pre-order the signed edition because I loved Nisha Dolan's Exciting Time so much that I thought I was going to love this one, and I wanted a signed edition, but unfortunately I didn't love it. But I will be reading whatever Nisha Dolan writes next. Then at Halloween time, I bought Neil Gaiman's The Graveyard Book, and I ended up not having enough time to read it at Halloween, so I'm saving it for this Halloween. I'm going to read it for Halloween 2024. Then I have My Last Innocent Year by Daisy Alpert Florin. I don't really remember anything about what this book was about, but when I first heard it, I was sold on it. And when that happens, I don't like to read the blurb afterwards. I just get sold on it, know I want to read it, buy it, and then just jump into it. I don't want to read the blurb. So apologies that I don't remember what all of these books are about, but that's just how I work when I buy my books and choose to read them. I just get sold once, never read the blurb again, and just jump into the book, because a lot of times blurbs spoil stuff, and I don't want that to happen. So I am looking forward to this. I love this book cover. It's beautiful. Then we have Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead by Olga, oh no, I don't remember how to pronounce her last name, Tokarczuk. Olga Tokarczuk, I think, maybe? I don't know, I'm sorry. So again, this is in translation. No idea what it's about, but I've only heard incredible things about it, like truly amazing things about it. Everybody loves this book, so I'm looking forward to reading this. Next is The Future by Adam Thirlwell. This was a cover buy. Actually, this book has two covers, and I could not choose which one I wanted. I love them both so much. I was at the bookstore holding both editions in front of me, and I'm like, which one do I buy? They're both so beautiful. I ended up buying this one because I love this painting. It's one of my favorites, but I really love this cover as well. And if when I read this book I love it, maybe I'll buy the other edition too. Who knows? We can't say. Next is a book that I think I'm really going to love, and it's The Rachel Incident by Caroline O'Donoghue. Again, it's one of those, I was sold on it. I bought the book. I'm not going to read the blurb again, but I've recently been hearing some really good things about it. I think I'm going to love this book. I don't know. I was sold. This is one that just really sticks out to me, that I was like, that's a Kari book right there. So we'll see. I hope so. Next is a poetry collection by Mary Oliver. It's called Dog Songs. It's a bunch of poems about her dogs, and as a dog lover, I have 2 dogs. I love my dogs. I'm obsessed with my dogs. I just really enjoyed reading these poems. Some of them made me tear up a little bit. This is something that I'm definitely going to go back to multiple times throughout my life because it was really good. If you're a dog lover, would definitely recommend. Next are 2 books from Fernanda Melchior, Paradise and Hurricane Season. Last year, I really discovered Fitzcarraldo editions because of the International Booker, you know, The Birthday Party and Stillborn, and that I had never heard about Fitzcarraldo editions before that. And the more I looked into it, the more I realized how cool this publishing house is, and I wanted to look into what were some of their most popular books, and Fernanda Melchior was definitely at the top of that list. And I've only heard amazing things about Fernanda Melchor, and that these are her 2 most popular books, so I definitely want to read this. I put Paradise on my 24 books I want to read in 2024 list, so I'll definitely be getting to that this year. Then we have The Nursery by Sylvia Molnar. I read this last year and I really liked it. If you've ever read The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman, this is one of my favorite short stories of all time. I love that book, and if you look into the history of it, it's really interesting. It's like autofiction kind of. This deals with really similar themes. It deals with trauma and postpartum and all the different things that comes with having a child, like the negative things that come with having a child for a woman, and it was really good. So again, if you like The Yellow Wallpaper, would recommend. I think it would be really interesting to do some research, like a essay or something, comparing and contrasting The Yellow Wallpaper with The Nursery, because they're quite similar. Next is Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata. I read Earthlings by her last year because everybody said, oh, it's like the most weird book I've ever read before. It wasn't that weird, okay? You're talking to the girl who Bunny is her favorite book of all time, okay? It was fine. I just thought it was fine, but this one really sounded more up my alley. Convenience Store Woman, I actually read it already at the beginning of this year. Really enjoyed it. It's about a woman who feels like she doesn't fit in with society for all these different reasons, and society is pushing all these different expectations on her, and how does she react to societal expectations of what she should be doing in life. And I just thought it was excellent. It's short but sweet. It was really good. Next, we have Stoner by John Williams. I've heard nothing but good things about this book. All I know is that it's about a professor, and I love academic setting books, and just the rave reviews that I've heard about it, apparently it's incredible. I don't love the vintage edition of this book, so when I was at Shakespeare and Company and they had this vintage edition, like Vintage Classics Publishing House edition, it's not vintage itself, but vintage publishing, I had to pick this up. So I'm looking forward to reading this because, like I said, I've only heard amazing things about this book. Next, we have Aesthetica by Ali Rowbottom. This is one that I bought at the end of last year, and I've already read it this year. Basically, it's about a society where they have this new experimental plastic surgery where it can take away all the plastic surgery that you've already had done previously and like put you back to normal as if you had had no plastic surgery. And it follows this girl who's grown up as a influencer on Instagram, and she really gets taken away in being an influencer and starts to get more and more plastic surgery to where she doesn't even recognize herself anymore. And we follow her leading up to this procedure of having aesthetica. That's the name of the procedure, to have everything undone. And it's just really interesting examination of how Instagram and the search for looking perfect is influencing an entire generation. So it was pretty good. It wasn't perfect, but it was pretty good. I'd recommend it. And actually, this next book, it's Sugar Baby by Celine St. Clair. Actually, this was recommended by one of you guys. Thank you so much for recommending it. I really enjoyed it. Actually, these 2 books are quite similar, not necessarily in plot, but the themes of it are quite similar. When I was reading this one, I read this one in December and I read this one in January, I think. The plots are not the same, but the overall messaging and themes are quite similar. About young women trying to impress and entice and be desired by an older man, a powerful older man that can have like control over their lives. In this case, obviously, this is about her being a sugar baby to older men, which obviously isn't the case in Aesthetica, but the overall themes are quite similar. So if you've read one and you liked it, I would recommend reading the other one because they're pretty similar. All right, so those are all the literary fiction that I bought not for a particular prize, that I'm just interested in them. Let's do these 3 next because it's just 3 of them. You can tell I'm not a fantasy girly, huh? These are my fantasy books that I bought last year. I got this hardback edition of A Dance with Dragons, which is the only A Song of Ice and Fire book I still need to read in the original series that I still need to read, so I would like to read from this hardback edition. I got Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb because I've been starting to kind of have an existential crisis about what am I going to read after I'm finished with The Song of Ice and Fire. That's why I've delayed reading A Dance with Dragons so long, because I'm like, well, what am I going to read after that? Nothing's going to compare. But I've heard a lot of people compare Robin Hobb to George R.R. Martin, so I think after I read A Dance with Dragons, I'm going to pick up this series. I think it's called The Farseer? I don't know. Don't quote me on that. Like I said, I'm not a fantasy girly, okay? But I've just heard so many people say that if you like George R.R. Martin and you're looking for something else, read Robin Hobb. Also, a lot of people say that she'll make you cry, like undoubtedly. I love when books can make me cry, so I was sold. Then I got the special edition of Dune Messiah. It matches my, I don't know if you can see it. I have the, oh, I can't reach it. I have the matching first book of the Dune series in this edition, and I'd like to read the next book in the series, Dune Messiah, because I think they're going to, I haven't seen the new Dune movie that literally just came out like the other day yet, but I'm pretty sure that they've said that they're going to adapt into Dune Messiah as well. So I want to read that. So with those 3 books, that concludes my literary fiction girly doesn't really read too much fantasy book haul. Let's move to thrillers next. And there's horror in here as well. First, if you saw my favorite books of 2023 video, you will have seen this book already. It's Escape and Control by Steve Hollyman. This was strictly a cover by, I mean, can you tell this is my favorite color? Strictly a cover by. I love this cover. It was so cool. If you want to hear more about this book, you can check out my favorite books of 2023 video. I gush about this book. It's so good. Definitely recommend. Then I got The Chateau by Jacqueline Goldis. This is a thriller that takes place at a chateau in France. I had to get this book. I live in France. I love going to chateaus. I've stayed in so many like bed and breakfasts that are in chateaus that I fucking love a chateau. Okay, so I'm really looking forward to reading this. I think I'm going to like it. Next is a book of a death seller. That's what I was about to say. Next is Death of a Bookseller by Alice Slater. I'm starting to hesitate if I even want to read this one anymore, because the more people read it, they're saying that it's not really like a traditional thriller and that it's really slow, and I don't know. I don't know if I'm still interested. If you've read this one, let me know if you liked it or not. Then at the end of last year, I picked up Peter Swanson's new novella. It's The Christmas Guest. I didn't have enough time to read it before Christmas, even though it's super short, but I got it like literally like 2 days before Christmas. So I'll definitely be reading this for Christmas 2024. I've never read a Christmas thriller, so I'm looking forward to that. I hope I like it. A lot of people have said that they liked it. Then I have The Only One Left by Riley Sager. This is his latest book. I started this in December and I finished it in January, and so I haven't talked about it yet anywhere, but I don't think people are going to be happy with my opinion on this book. I keep seeing people that they love this book. I don't understand. Lock Every Door by Riley Sager is one of my favorite thrillers I've ever read. I've been chasing that high from a Riley Sager book since then. And then I read A House Across the Lake, which I didn't love the ending, but leading up to the ending, I felt really compelled to keep reading. I loved it. I couldn't put it down. It's just the ending that was a little bit disappointing. But this one, I did not feel compelled to keep reading. I think it took me a month to keep reading. I kept reading other stuff instead of this because I did not care to pick it up. I didn't like it, but whatever. Okay, so this is something that I bought. This isn't a review time, but this is something that I bought. I finally just got this one in the mail the other day, even though I pre-ordered it to get it when it came out, but apparently because this is the American edition, it's been impossible to get here in France, but I finally just got it the other day, and that's The Fury by Alex Michaelides. I hope I like this one more than I like The Maidens. I did really like The Silent Patient when I read that back in 2019? Was it 2019? No. It came out in 2019. I think I read it in January 2020, I want to say. Really liked it. The Maidens, didn't like it. I hope I like this one. And no, I don't regret waiting for the American edition of this because it's beautiful. And the UK one, then at the end of last year, I got a copy of Wrong Place, Wrong Time by Gillian McAllister. I was influenced by Bookslikewhoa to buy this because this was one of her favorite thrillers last year. She really sold me on it. So I hope that I like this one. Then we have 2 T. Kingfisher books. The first, again, I've already ranted about this one in my least favorite books of 2023 video. It's A House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher. Hated it. Super boring. Super boring. And then Thorn Hedge, also by T. Kingfisher. This is a retelling of Sleeping Beauty, I think. I haven't read it yet. It's super short, but I'm hoping that I like this one more than A House with Good Bones. Here's hoping. Another book that made it to my least favorite books of 2023 video was The Whispers by Ashley O'Drain. I loved the push. I was so excited when I heard that she was coming out with another book. Bought it right away, read it right away. So boring. It's so boring. I did not like this at all, especially after how much I loved the push. Like, that made it even worse of how much I hated this book. Would not recommend. Then a book that made it to my favorite books of 2023 video was The Last Word by Taylor Adams. Great. Definitely recommend. Pulled me out of a reading slump. Would recommend that you buy this as well, or borrow it from your library, whatever. Acquire this book and read it. And I've been meaning to get this book for years. I've been talking about getting this book for years. It's No Exit by Taylor Adams, but the only edition that was available to me here in France was this really ugly one that I did not want, and I refused to buy it. But finally, that same friend that brought me the special edition of Demon Copperhead, they brought me this edition from the US. Now, is it the perfect edition that I wanted? I wanted this one. Is it that edition? No. But apparently this one's like impossible to get anymore, so I settled for this one. And I think that's the end of the thrillers and horror. Next, let's move on to nonfiction. First, let's talk about this one. I just have I just have the dust jacket because the book itself is in my bedroom, because this is the book that I'm reading right now. It's Thunderclap, a memoir of art and life and sudden death by Laura Cumming. This was longlisted for the first Women's Prize for Nonfiction. That long list was just announced like a week ago. The long list was actually announced at the same time I was reading The Goldfinch, and this book is about the author of the Goldfinch. So I have to read this because it's just like meant to be that this book was longlisted when I was reading the book The Goldfinch. I got this book about Shakespeare and Company, the really famous bookstore here in Paris. I go there all the time, and this is just a really special book that they sell at the bookstore. It's just a history book about the bookshop itself, because there's a lot of history to this bookstore. If you ever come to Paris, you absolutely have to go to Shakespeare and Company. It's a bookish rite of passage. Would definitely recommend. Then I have Dog-Hearted, Essays on Our Fierce and Familiar Companions, edited by Rowan Buchanan and Jessica Lee. I haven't read this one yet, but kind of like the Mary Oliver poems I was talking about before, I'm obsessed with my dogs. I love reading about dogs, so hopefully I enjoy this essay collection about dogs. If you have followed my manga evolution the past year, if you watch this video where I read manga for the first time, you'll see my instant love affair with Japanese culture and manga, and so I picked up this nonfiction book. It's called Pure Invention: How Japan's Pop Culture Conquered the World by Matt Alt. So it's just a nonfiction book about how Japanese culture and manga and anime and all things Japanese have really permeated throughout the rest of the world. So I'm looking forward to reading this. At the beginning of January 2024, Ed Winters came out with his new book, How to Argue with a Meat Eater and Win Every Time. Maybe you'll remember me talking about This is Vegan Propaganda by Ed Winters. I loved that book. It was so good. This is just about how he's so good at debating people about veganism. If you've ever watched his YouTube channel, you know what I mean. I already read this book. It's really good. It covers all the points that you see him doing in those YouTube videos. It's really good. I would recommend reading This is Vegan Propaganda before reading this one though. Oh, also, even though I have a dedicated edition of This is Vegan Propaganda because I went to go see Ed talk in Paris last year, I did pre-order the signed edition of How to Argue with a Meat Eater, just so that they're both signed, you know? Then I finally got a copy of The Art of Language Invention by David Peterson. This is the guy who created all the languages on the Game of Thrones TV show, so Dothraki, Valyrian, Giscari, all these different languages that were created for the Game of Thrones TV show. This guy created them, and he's created other languages for other movies and TV shows. I don't remember which ones, but I think it would be really interesting because personally, I'm really fascinated with language, so I think it'd be really interesting to see his philosophy around creating these languages. And also, I'm just fucking obsessed with A Song of Ice and Fire and Game of Thrones and everything, so I had to add it to the reading list. Next are 3 essays from Annie Ernaux. Again, these are all from Fitzcarraldo editions. Their nonfiction is in white, whereas the fiction is in blue. I have The Young Man, Simple Passion, and Happening. I read all 3 of these last year. They're fantastic. Would definitely recommend. I would recommend reading Happening first. This is probably her most famous, I would guess. Very powerful, but I enjoyed all 3 of these. I'm really looking forward to reading more Annie Ernaux. Next is Monsters, A Fan's Dilemma by Claire Dederer. This is a nonfiction book about separating art from the artist, which is something I find really fascinating. I think I'm going to love this one. I've heard really good things about it. This is on my 24 books I want to read in 2024. I think I'm going to enjoy this one because this is a topic that really fascinates me. So that was all the nonfiction. I'm going to talk to you about 2 graphic novels and then talk to you about manga. The first graphic novel is The Mémoires de Marie Antoinette by Noël Simsolo, and it's just a graphic novel. I bought this at the Chateau de Versailles, so it's got the stamp of approval of the Chateau de Versailles, so it's got to be pretty accurate. And this is actually a series. There's another one that after I read this one, I would like to buy the second one if I enjoy it. So just a graphic novel about Marie Antoinette, fascinating figure in French history. And then the other graphic novel is In Waves by AJ Dungo. This was the last book that I read in 2023. This was strictly a cover buy. I was at Smith & Son here in Paris and I just saw the cover and I flipped through the art and I was like, yeah, I want to read that. The color palette is just beautiful. It's a really powerful book, and it's nonfiction. I didn't say that. It's nonfiction about the author's girlfriend, and I don't want to say too much, but it's sad. I cried like a fucking baby at the end of this, which was surprising for me, from a graphic novel to make me cry so hard. Wow, it's really good. Would recommend. All right, I need to go pick up all my manga off the shelf. All right, first I'm going to talk about my Sailor Moon manga collection. I'm going to lift it up real fast because it's really fucking heavy, okay? These are the 10 volumes of Sailor Moon. They're so heavy. They're really nice editions. Would definitely recommend buying the Eternal editions. That's what they're called. Highly, highly recommend. They're beautiful. So there's 10 volumes in the main series. 2 volumes for like a side story, like a prequel kind of. It's Sailor V. Basically Sailor Venus before she joined them. She was Sailor V, so it's kind of like a side story. So there's 12 volumes in total. But these are just really, really beautiful books. Would highly recommend. And there's even color on some of the pages, which is really, really nice. Oh my god. I can't drop these because these are too expensive per volume to be dropping. Oh my god, I can't imagine if I drop these. Okay, so like this is the 10th volume. It's just really nice. I mean, you can tell this is a bigger volume than a regular manga. Where's a regular manga? So like, as you can see, this edition is a regular size manga, and then this is the Eternal edition. You can see this is a really nice size book. So it's nice for the visual aspect to see bigger pictures. Would highly recommend. I read all 10 volumes of Sailor Moon last year. Loved it. You can watch this vlog of me reading Sailor Moon for the very first time and me going fucking feral for Sailor Moon. Then, because I loved Sailor Moon so much, another magical girl manga that is always highly recommended right alongside Sailor Moon is Cardcaptor Sakura. And so I got the first 2 volumes of this collector's edition of Cardcaptor Sakura. These books are stunning, stunning. This one is still wrapped in plastic, so obviously it's nice just to have the plastic to protect them, but it comes with these like a little card inside. I haven't read it yet, so I don't know what the card means, but obviously card captor. Card means something, I don't know, but it comes with a little card inside. And these are just really nice hardback editions, so I would highly recommend these editions. So these are just really beautiful books, and I'm really happy that I was able to get these editions. I mean, they're not rare or anything, but as long as I like this manga, I'll keep buying this edition, obviously, because they're stunning. Speaking of more stunning hardback manga, I have The Rose of Versailles. I have the first 2 volumes here. As I've already talked about in this video, I'm obsessed with the Chateau de Versailles here near close to Paris. So this is just a manga that takes place at the court of Versailles. Obsessed. Can't wait to read these. I haven't read them yet. I'm really looking forward to it. I think I'm gonna love these. I put this first volume on my 24 books to read in 2024. That's definitely gonna happen. I'm so excited. And these books are stunning. Again, they're hardback, heavy books. Beautiful books. Can't wait to read this. I guess we'll keep going with the shoujo manga and talk about Nana? I don't know how you say it. Nana? I don't know. I got the first 3 volumes of it. I've already read the first one this year. Really enjoyed it, but I guess it's just like a prequel to the rest of the series. I learned that after I finished it. This one just introduced us to the 2 main characters, I guess, and that starting in volume 2, it's gonna like take off into the real plot of the story. I don't know, but I really, really enjoyed it. I think I'm going to like this a lot. My only problem with the first volume was that the translation was It's clear that the translation was done a long time ago because the slang in this was so late 90s, early 2000s, and that took me out of the story. Like, I'd be really enjoying the story, and then the slang would be like, oh yeah, I'm reading a book. But overall, really enjoying this so far. In the same vein, as you already saw, I have Yona of the Dawn. Again, the first 3 volumes of Yona of the Dawn. I feel like 3 volumes of a manga is a good amount of volumes to give a manga a chance because they're quite short, you know, so if I read 3 and didn't like it, then that would be safe to say that I gave it a chance. I did read the first one already, enjoyed it a lot. I'm definitely looking forward to continuing. So I have those 3 volumes of Yona of the Dawn, although I think there's a shit ton of these. I don't remember how many, but a lot of Yona of the Dawn. So I have a lot to read if I end up wanting to keep reading that. Then I also got 2 volumes of Fruits Basket. Again, this was the first book that I read in 2024, actually, was the first volume of Fruits Basket. Super cute. It actually took me a lot longer to read than most of these small manga, like the Nana and the Yona of the Dawn. It was pretty fast. This took a lot longer, like a couple hours, which is, you know, good. I want to get my money's worth from these manga, so I was really happy that it took a good amount longer than the other manga. Really, really cute. Looking forward to continuing in the series. So I have the second one here. Looking forward to it. And these are the collector's edition in English. So that's all the shoujo manga that I have, but I also have some horror manga. If you watched my best books of 2023 video, you'll know that Uzumaki by Junji Ito was one of my favorite books that I read last year. Loved it. It was so good. So because I loved Uzumaki so much, I ended up buying Tomie by Junji Ito. Read it. Loved it. And Gyo Bookslikewhoa by Junji Ito as well. And these 3 books just look really good on a shelf together. And then I also got these 2 other Junji Ito. I got Fragments of Horror and Shiver, because these are the 2 that I heard the most about after those 3. I've already read Fragments of Horror. It was on my 24 books to read in 2024. It was pretty good. Not as good as the other 3, but I did enjoy it. And I haven't read Shiver yet, but I've heard that it's very good. And one day I was just on Reddit looking at people's collections of Junji Ito books, because just seeing them all lined up together is really nice to look at, and I was trying to figure out which ones do I want to buy next. And someone had posted this picture where they had all these Junji Ito books on their shelf, but then they had some non-Junji Ito horror manga beside it, and I saw these books that the spines looked so cool. I was like, what the hell is that? I need to look into that. And that's, if I don't drop them, The Drifting Classroom. Look at these spines. You see what I mean? Okay, so I saw these on the shelf next to their Junji Ito collection. I was like, oh my god. Beautiful book alert. Oh my god. So I looked it up and people compare it. This is by Kazuo Umes. Again, the series is called The Drifting Classroom, and it's basically about a school that goes missing one day. Like there's some catastrophic apocalyptic thing that happens in Japan, and this school just disappears off the map, and basically it's like thrown into the future. That's all at the beginning of the first book. It's the school is thrown into the future, into this complete wasteland, and these kids have to figure out how to survive in the future. And it's really, really good. If you like Junji Ito, I definitely recommend it. It's not as body horror scary as Junji Ito, but it's the vibes of Junji Ito. And I mean, look at these. These are called the perfect editions of The Drifting Classroom, if you're interested. They look so good on a shelf together. So you're all caught up on all the books that I've bought for the past year. Hopefully this gave you some inspiration of maybe some books that you'll be interested to pick up for yourself. Definitely let me know in the comments if that was the case for you, if anything sounded interesting, or if you have any thoughts about any of these books, definitely let me know. If you like this video, please give it a like. I would really, really appreciate it. And subscribe if you haven't already. I would love to have you back when I get to more of these books. You can hear more reviews about them and see more book hauls in the future. And I'll talk to you again next time. Bye!